All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore a world we all live in every single day, the modern information maze. And our big question is, who's actually drawing the maps that are supposed to help us find our way to the truth?
You know that feeling when your brain just feels like a web browser with 1,000 tabs open? You're scrolling and scrolling through the sea of articles and videos and opinions, and it just gets so hard to figure out what's real, what's got an agenda, and what's just plain wrong.
Well, if that sounds familiar, you are so not alone. And what's really cool is that there's an entire field of researchers working on this exact problem. Think of them like modern day cartographers trying to draw a reliable map for this confusing new territory so we can all get through it. And the skill they're focused on is called information literacy. Honestly, you should think of it as the essential compass for the 21st century. It's not just about finding stuff online, it's about knowing how to question it, how to see the context, and how to actually use it in a meaningful way. It's a straight up survival skill. So, for this explainer, we kind of got our hands on a case file. It's this huge study that tore apart 5 years of academic research on information literacy, all the way from 2017 to 2021, to see who's talking, what they're saying, and how the whole conversation is changing. So, just how big was this deep dive? It really comes down to one number: 928. That's right, the researchers looked at 928 different academic documents, articles, papers, you name it. And they weren't just reading them, they were literally mapping the connections between all of them to get the big picture. And to do that, you need a pretty special tool. That tool is called bibliometrics. Now, it sounds super complicated, I know, but it's really just a smart way of using stats to find patterns in publications. You can think of it like data science, but for research papers. It lets us see who the major players are and which ideas are making the biggest splash. So, our investigation begins. First up, we're on the clue trail. We need to figure out who the key players are and where the major hubs of this activity are. Where is all this important research actually coming from? And boom, here is our first major clue. This chart maps out which countries are having the biggest impact. And this isn't just about who publishes the most papers, it's about whose work gets cited the most by other researchers. And that's a huge sign of influence. So the first thing that just jumps off the page is the huge role of the United States. I mean, look at that, 648 citations. That's more than 4 times the next country on the list. So what that tells us is that researchers in the US, followed by Norway and the UK, are really the ones setting the agenda for the entire world. The problems being studied are largely being seen through an American lens. That's a key landmark on our map. Okay, let's follow the trail to our next piece of evidence. It's not just about countries, it's about the specific places where these ideas are getting shared. This chart shows us the most influential academic journals, and they're ranked by something called an H-index, which is really just a fancy way of measuring both how much a journal publishes and how often that work gets referenced by others. And here they are, the heavy hitters. Journals like the Journal of Information Literacy and college and research libraries are at the top. So, what does this tell us? It confirms that this conversation has been happening for a long time within the world of academic and research libraries. These are the main forums where the map of our information world is being drawn, mostly for a university-level audience. Okay, so we know who is leading the pack, but what are they actually talking about? This is where our investigation gets really, really interesting. This is where we see the hot topics and watch the whole conversation change in real time. So first, let's get our bearings. This chart shows the most common keywords from that 5-year period. No big surprise, information literacy is number 1. But check out the others. Academic libraries, library inscription, assessment. This shows us that the traditional heart of this research has been higher education. But that foundation is shifting. This field is not standing still. This next chart is fascinating because it tracks topics over time, and you can literally see new, urgent conversations just bursting onto the scene as the years go by. Let's break that down. On one side, you've got those classic foundational topics that are always there, like academic libraries. But then, look at what starts to surge after 2019. Fake news, media literacy, digital literacy. The whole conversation is clearly twisting and turning to face the challenges that we all deal with online every day. And nothing shows how fast this happens better than how the real world just crashes into academic research. The study makes a point of this, saying that the keyword COVID-19 showed up for the very first time in 2020. That just shows how quickly researchers had to pivot to study the insane wave of misinformation that came along with the pandemic. So we've followed the clues and we've watched the research landscape change right before our eyes. But let's pull it all together. What's the big takeaway here, and why does any of this academic map making matter in your daily life? Okay, here's the summary of our investigation. The map of information literacy is, for the most part, being drawn by researchers in the United States, and it has deep roots in university settings. But, and this is the key part, that map is being redrawn right now to include the messy modern problems of fake news and digital chaos. And here's why that's so important. This research isn't just for academics. It's the blueprint that shapes the classes in schools and the training in libraries that teaches all of us how to be smarter, safer travelers in this information maze. So yeah, the experts are working hard. They're constantly updating their maps to try and make sense of this wild new territory. And their work helps all of us. But it leaves us with one last really important question. Knowing what you know now, how are you going to navigate the maze?